I never expected her to remember my name, let alone everything else. I was folding my laundry, the dryer humming behind me, when she appeared in the doorway of the laundromat. She had that look again, one I couldn't quite place. Like recognition, but tempered by something else. Curiosity, maybe. Or regret. "Hey," she said softly. Not the kind of casual greeting you toss off. She sounded cautious. I turned, caught her eye, and froze for a moment. She smiled just a little, like she was holding something back. My hands stilling over the laundry, I wondered if I was blushing. Not for the first time. "I think that's your fourth load this week," she added, glancing at the detergent bottle I'd left on the counter. "Busy?" I shrugged. "Yeah, part-time at the bookstore, and trying not to eat instant noodles every night." I laughed, a little too quietly. She nodded, eyes flicking to my hands as I folded a shirt. Her gaze lingered longer than it should have, on the small motions I didn't even notice. The way I pressed the edges together. The way my fingers brushed the fabric. "I remember you liked that one band," she said suddenly, almost like a statement. Not a question. My stomach dropped. "You played their record the last time you were over." I didn't know how to answer. My brain stalled. I could feel the warmth creeping up my neck. I cleared my throat. "Yeah, I guess I do." We stood there, neither of us speaking. Her eyes found mine again. Something in the way she held her thermos, tilting it slightly before taking a sip, made me feel like I was intruding and being invited at the same time. I tried to focus on folding the rest of my laundry, but my thoughts kept slipping back to her. The line of her jaw, the way she tucked her hair behind her ear absent-mindedly, the faint scent of coffee lingering around her like she carried it wherever she went. I'd been living like this for a while, quiet evenings with unsent texts waiting in my phone, half-written messages to people I barely knew, pausing mid-step when my mind wandered to her, pretending it was about something else. Loneliness wasn't a thunderclap, it was the ticking clock while you fold socks alone. She tilted her head and caught me looking, and her lips quirked in a smile. "You're still drinking that awful instant coffee," she said, half joking. "Some things never change." I shrugged again, pretending not to care, but my fingers curled around a clean sock a little tighter. "Guess some habits stick." She laughed, a quiet sound that seemed to fit perfectly with the laundromat's hum. And for a moment, I felt seen. Not because she said anything remarkable, but because she remembered. Small, ordinary things, my music taste, my coffee, my awkward folding technique. And somehow it made the world feel less hollow. Then, just as quickly, she was gathering her bag. "Well, I should go. Dinner with your mom," she said, like it explained everything, like it didn't. I nodded, fumbling for words, and she gave me that look again. A glance that lingered, not demanding, not pleading, just holding the space between us. As she stepped out into the evening, leaving the sliding door to shut with a soft click, my phone buzzed. I fished it out, heart skipping. A text from her. "I left something at your apartment. Can I drop by tomorrow?" I stared at it, thumb hovering over the screen, the weight of all those quiet moments pressing down. And for the first time in weeks, I wasn't sure if I wanted to fold the laundry or just watch the door. The next afternoon, she showed up at my apartment, just as the text promised. She carried a small brown paper bag, the kind you get at a corner bakery, and an air of casual authority that made the room feel smaller, warmer. "I forgot this," she said, setting it down on the counter. Her fingers lingered on the edge of the bag, brushing mine lightly. I tried not to notice, but the pause stretched, and neither of us moved. "Thanks," I said, though my voice sounded too loud in the quiet apartment. She poured 2 mugs of tea, the steam curling between us. I watched her hands, careful, deliberate, and felt the pull of wanting to reach for them, to steady them, though I had no excuse. I used to come here a lot when your mom lived here," she said, not looking at me. "Back when it was just me, before all the chaos." I nodded, trying to match her tone. "Yeah? I didn't know you ever." I trailed off, realizing the thought was too heavy to finish. She laughed softly, a little bitter, as if she hadn't meant to confess anything at all. "Not important," she said. "It's silly." I wanted to tell her it wasn't silly. I wanted to tell her that 1,000 small moments, her remembering my music, the way she notices me folding socks, mattered more than she could know. But the thought stopped in my throat. I caught myself imagining her here, staying. Imagining her leaning back on the couch, letting me touch her hand, asking questions about things I wasn't ready to answer. Forbidden, complicated thoughts, bubbling just beneath the surface. She glanced at me then, and for a second the world contracted. "You've been alone a lot," she said, quietly, like an observation and a warning wrapped together. "I guess," I said. I didn't add that I liked it that way, because it made noticing her, seeing her, feel more real, more dangerous. We sat in silence after that. I stirred my tea too slowly. She folded a napkin in her lap. The quiet wasn't awkward. It was weighted, filled with everything we didn't say. Finally, she reached across the small table to adjust the corner of the napkin I'd let slip. Her fingers brushed mine again, slower this time. I felt the warmth linger longer than necessary. Not intimacy, not yet, but a soft, deliberate acknowledgement. I smiled, just a fraction, and she caught it. "You've grown," she said, voice low. Not like a compliment, exactly. More like recognition. I didn't answer. I just let my eyes flick toward hers and then down at my mug, trying to pretend the thrum in my chest wasn't hers. When she left, she paused in the doorway, one hand lightly on the frame. "See you tomorrow," she said, and there was a softness to it, something that felt like permission. I nodded, and she smiled that small, knowing smile, like she was holding something just for me. Later, I thought about that touch, the quiet acknowledgement across the table. I don't know why that moment stayed with me. Maybe because it felt like someone finally saw me. I saw her in the hallway before class, leaning against the wall, phone in hand. She looked up, caught my gaze, and something tightened in my chest. The same pull as always, and maybe something more urgent today. "Hey," I said, voice low. "Hey," she replied, but her smile faltered just a little, like she was measuring something she didn't want to say aloud. We walked together toward the cafe near campus. I wanted to reach for her arm, but didn't. Instead, I fiddled with my bag strap, pretending I was adjusting it, though my hands shook slightly. We ordered tea and sandwiches. I noticed the way she stirred her cup, slow, deliberate, eyes never leaving mine. I felt the urge to ask something, anything, but my throat went dry. Then the bell rang from the lecture hall across the street. A friend of mine, laughing, waved at me. My heart sank. She glanced toward him, a subtle tightening around her lips. Maybe she noticed, maybe she didn't. I hope she didn't. We walked to a corner booth, quieter. She pushed her chair back slightly, a little more distance than necessary. I caught myself imagining leaning over the table, brushing her hair behind her ear, feeling her breathe. Forbidden, impossible, and yet. "So, your mom," I started. She shook her head, cutting me off softly. "Not now." A beat. I shouldn't. Her hands hovered near the cup. I noticed the flicker of hesitation in her fingers. A pause so long it became almost a heartbeat. I wanted to reach across, to close the space, but I didn't. Instead, I picked at the edge of my sandwich, glancing at her. The silence stretched, thick. "You've been distracted lately," she said finally, voice low. Not a question. Observation. Concern. Something more. I shrugged. Couldn't speak. Didn't want to. Didn't want to reveal the thoughts I had during those quiet afternoons in her apartment, imagining the brush of her hand, the warmth of her gaze lingering too long. Her eyes met mine again, slow. I felt the tug, the risk, the unspoken. My stomach flipped. She leaned forward slightly. I almost leaned in. Then the waiter arrived. Interrupting. She smiled at him, polite, mundane. I felt my pulse settle a little, but the tension didn't leave. We sipped tea in silence, too close, too far. Our knees brushed under the table. The touch was accidental and deliberate all at once. I imagined moving closer, hearing her inhale, feeling the weight of her arm on mine. I caught her looking at me, and our faces hovered an inch apart. My hand twitched. Her lips parted, a fraction, and then the sound of the bell, the movement of other students, the world reasserting itself. I pulled back just slightly. She did too, but neither of us spoke. The air between us hummed with everything left unsaid, everything we almost said. I left the cafe later, heart heavy, and couldn't stop thinking about how close we'd come, how nearly everything had shifted in that one moment. It was just after 5, the street quiet except for the hum of traffic in the distance. I found her sitting on the bench outside the small park near her apartment. The sky was bruised pink and gray, and the light made everything feel softer, sharper at the same time. I walked up slowly. She didn't look at me at first, just fiddling with the strap of her bag, twisting it between her fingers. Something in the way she avoided my eyes made my chest tighten. "You're late," she said finally. Not accusatory, just factual. "I got held up," I muttered, shoving my hands in my pockets. My palms felt damp. We sat. Not too close. Not too far. Side by side. I caught the faint scent of her shampoo, vanilla, and something woody, and it made the hair on my arms stand on end. "I saw him today," she said, voice soft. Her thumb traced a line on the edge of the bench. "At the cafe. Your friend." I swallowed. The old friend who noticed me, who always seemed to show up at the wrong moments. "Yeah," I said. "He noticed." Her hand twitched, almost imperceptibly. "I don't like him noticing," she whispered. "Or anyone noticing us." The words hung there, delicate and dangerous. I turned toward her, but she looked away, out over the streetlights just flickering on. I don't know if I'm supposed to feel this," I said, voice low, uneven. "It's confusing." Her hand brushed mine, light, accidental or deliberate, and I didn't pull away. She exhaled, long, a sound that seemed like it carried everything she hadn't said in the last weeks. "You think too much," she said finally. I'm supposed to be careful. Your mom me all of it." "I don't care," I whispered. I just, my voice faltered. She looked at me then, eyes soft, searching, afraid maybe. There was a pause. A long pause. My fingers itched to close the distance, to hold her hand, to tell her that all the careful walls didn't matter to me. "I can't. I shouldn't," she said, almost to herself. Her chest rose and fell. Her eyes darted to the street and back again. "But I keep thinking," she trailed off. I leaned closer slightly, just enough to feel the warmth of her shoulder. She didn't move, didn't step back. And yet, the distance between us felt infinite. A car passed, lights flashing across her face, and I noticed the tremble in her hands. I wanted to ask her everything, but the words I almost said stayed behind my teeth. Instead, I just asked, quietly, almost a whisper, the question that had been building for weeks. "Do you ever feel the same?" Her eyes met mine. There was something there. Something raw. Something that scared both of us. But she didn't answer. Not yet. And for a moment, the world held its breath. She didn't answer my text the next morning. Or the day after. I kept checking my phone, thumb hovering over the screen. Every little ping made my stomach flip, but nothing came. Her place felt quieter than usual. I found myself lingering by the doorway, half expecting her to appear with that small, knowing smile, that careful tilt of her head. She didn't. When I finally saw her, it was at the grocery store. She passed by with a cart, head down, brisk, unrecognizable in her speed and purpose. I called her name. She didn't stop, didn't glance back. I tried to piece it together. Maybe I had done something wrong. Maybe she remembered something I hadn't. The thought of her pulling away, of closing that invisible door between us, made my chest ache. That evening, I sat on the couch with the lights low, tea gone cold beside me. I imagined her in the apartment, moving slowly, making choices that didn't include me, a different rhythm. I thought about all the things unsaid, the way her hand had brushed mine, the tremble in her fingers on that bench. And then nothing. Silence. A memory flickered. Her voice on the phone, months ago, a casual mention of a divorce. Or a fleeting comment about a child's soccer game she had to miss. I hadn't asked questions. I hadn't wanted to pry. But now it made sense why she hesitated, why her gaze had always lingered and pulled away. I imagined her with that other life, the obligations, the unspoken ties. And suddenly, all our small moments felt fragile, almost wrong. I tried sending a message, a joke, a question, something to bridge the gap, but deleted it halfway through. I couldn't, wouldn't. The words felt too permanent. Days passed. I watched her from the street outside her apartment. Not close, not intrusive, just a glimpse, enough to notice her moving past me, brisk, unreadable. I didn't try to follow. I didn't knock. I didn't call. I just stood there, pretending to adjust my backpack, heart tightening in a rhythm I didn't know how to name. I thought about all the things I wanted to say. The confession of how much I'd thought about her, how her presence in my quiet afternoons had shifted something in me. But every word I imagined sounded fragile, dangerous, like it could shatter what little equilibrium remained. I didn't feel heartbroken. I felt paused, like life forgot to finish the sentence. I folded my laundry again that night, slower than usual. The stack felt heavier. The hum of the dryer sounded hollow. I left her seat empty in my mind, as if the world might correct itself if I didn't disturb it. And then I looked at my phone, the screen dark, and thought about pressing send just once and didn't. I found her at her doorstep that evening, keys dangling in her hand. I had rehearsed 100 things, none of them right, and now they all seemed useless. The street was quiet. The air smelled faintly of rain and exhaust, ordinary and heavy. "Hey," I said, voice catching slightly. She looked at me, and I saw it immediately. The hesitation, the weight of all the pauses between us. She didn't invite me in, didn't close the door, just waited. I wasn't sure you wanted to see me," I said, fumbling with my backpack strap. Her fingers tightened briefly on the doorframe. "I wasn't sure either," she admitted. Her voice was low, calm, but something in it trembled. I swallowed, looking at the cracked step beneath my shoes, then back at her. I couldn't stop thinking about. She held up a hand, just slightly. "You don't have to say it all," she said. "Just enough." I exhaled. Enough. That word, simple, unpolished, carried more weight than any line I'd practiced. I stepped closer, careful, not too close. I noticed how she tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear, fingers lingering at the nape of her neck. I wanted to reach out, but I paused. I started again. Words caught. "I like seeing you. I don't know how to do this right. I just know I keep coming back." Her lips curved slightly, almost imperceptibly. Not a smile exactly, but a recognition. She nodded once, small. A tiny acknowledgement, enough to make the air shift between us. I didn't know if I should let you," she said quietly. "It's messy, complicated, and I'm not easy to." I cut in softly. I know it's messy, but I want to try, carefully, with permission." She let out a breath, long, slow. Her hands fell from the doorframe to rest on either side of it. "Okay," she said, voice soft. A single word. "Enough." We stood there, silence stretching comfortably now, filled with everything unspoken but understood. I could see it in her eyes, the caution, the longing, the acknowledgement that we'd both risked something small, something fragile. I noticed the corner of her mouth twitch. I reached out, fingertips brushing hers lightly, deliberately. No pressure, just a connection. A quiet acknowledgement that the pause, the hesitation, the nearlies, and the maybes, they weren't wasted. She squeezed my fingers once, a small, deliberate gesture. And that was enough. I stepped back just slightly. "Okay," I said, matching her tone. Simple, ordinary, true. And for the first time in weeks, I felt like we had crossed a line. Not a dramatic leap, not a declaration shouted across a room, but something quieter, something tangible, a soft, human connection. A door left slightly ajar. A moment held without breaking. Weeks passed, or maybe months. Time blurred softly, measured in small routines rather than calendars. I found myself back on the park bench, the same one near her apartment, mornings pale and still. 8:47 a.m., always 8:47. I like that about it. Neither of us ever said why we chose that time, but it became ours. She arrived carrying her thermos, the faint vanilla woody scent I'd memorized months ago. I had my black coffee, bitter and strong, just the way I liked it. We didn't rush. We didn't speak much at first. We just existed in the same space, a quiet rhythm that felt earned. "I made too much tea yesterday," she said casually one morning, setting the thermos down beside my cup. I glanced at it, smiled faintly, noticing the tilt of her wrist, the way her fingers lingered around the lid. I said nothing, but I folded the napkin beside my mug, the old habit that had once made her smile. She noticed, of course. She always did. That little acknowledgement, a simple gesture, meant more than any words could. Sometimes, life intervened. A call from her child, an errand I had to run, a friend stopping by unexpectedly. But we adapted. We learned to exist around the interruptions, not in spite of them. The moments in between, the shared coffee, the brush of hands passing a napkin, the quiet hum of the world, became our markers of connection. One afternoon, the sky low and soft with rain, we walked to the small cafe on the corner. I carried the umbrella, but she insisted on holding the thermos. We didn't speak about the weeks that had gone by, or the tension that had once hung like fog between us. It didn't need to be spoken. It had been acknowledged and survived. When we returned, she paused at the doorway, just like that first evening. Her fingers brushed the frame. I felt the old pull, but it was steadier now. Safer. You know, she said quietly, almost to herself. I think I like this, the quiet mornings. The nothing that feels like everything. I nodded, understanding without needing to explain. Me too. I noticed the small details that had once caught my attention. The tilt of her head as she sipped her coffee, the way she tucked her hair behind her ear, the quiet humor in the corners of her eyes. Familiar, achingly so, but never stagnant. We sat on the bench that evening, watching the sun fade behind the city rooftops. No words necessary. The black coffee between us, the faint scent of tea lingering, the subtle warmth of hands brushing against one another. It was enough. Later, when I replayed the memory in my head, I realized something. No grand gestures, no dramatic confessions. Just us, navigating the ordinary. And somehow, that made it more real, more lasting. I leaned back, eyes on the horizon. She glanced at me, smile soft, and our hands touched briefly. That touch, fleeting and deliberate, said everything the world hadn't. Only we would understand. Only we needed to. The story ends quietly, grounded, warm.